Okay. Yeah, so much for getting that in one episode of Stating the Obvious. This is why when I started these, Stating the Obvious was often much shorter. But then I talk a lot. Then again, when I'm talking about statist, it's easy to get pretty worked out. Messiah. Did you know that Obama puts his pants on 2 legs at a time? Because he's the Messiah. He just floats in air. Oh, you can scream, shout, whine, cry, snivel, piss, moan. You can shove your opinion up your ass. That way your head has something to keep it company. Don't forget, the ever-present, the most likely, the third possibility. You are wrong, and I am right. See, I did not forget to do the intro that time. I was not distracted by my bitching about how much the media is shitting themselves over Whitney Houston's death. This is Stating the Obvious, brought to you by the Cynical Libertarian Society. Stating the Obvious is the weapons platform from which I launch the nuclear-tipped cruise missile of my intellect that homes in on and destroys stupid statist motherfuckers all over the place. And there's a lot of you statists out there with your hate and your contempt and your stupidity and your narrow-mindedness. And if I could take my 50 caliber machine gun and mow you all down, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And I'd sleep fine that night. It would not keep me awake at all. The theme song for Stating the Obvious is You Know I'm Right by David Gilmour. It's on his 1984 album About Face. It's a song he wrote about me. In the control room is the lovely and adorable Randy. She's the sound engineer, and she's also there mostly to keep me on track. And whenever I forget what I was talking about, hold up the whiteboard with a note on it saying, you were talking about statist, dumbass. Please try to stay with the program. The email address, the web address, Cynical Libertarian Society on the internet, cynlibsoc.com, cynicallibertariansociety.com. You can email me at god@cynicallibertariansociety.com. That is dog spelled backwards, God, G-O-D. Picking up where I left off on the last one. What? Hold on. Randy, where's my... Okay, that person's not going to call back. All right, I'll bug her again tomorrow. All right, we're picking up where we left off on the video Shit Statists Say to Libertarians. I just finished going off about how you statists are all so filled with hatred for other people's freedom that you are willing to give up your own freedom and be a slave just in order to see other people's freedom restricted. If you did not listen to part 1 of this, that's okay, because maybe you're a libertarian anarchist and you don't do things in the order you're supposed to do things. I'm not the state. I'm not going to tell you, I am not going to tell you it's illegal to listen to part 2 and then listen to part 1. If that's how you want to roll, I'm okay with that, because you see, I believe that you can make your own decisions in your own best interest. You don't need the state to tell you what order to listen to these podcasts in.
Ron Paul? Oh, vote for somebody a little bit more mainstream than that, for crying in the sunshine.
Yes, Ron Paul. We can't have you voting for Ron Paul. We need you to vote for somebody like, I don't know, Obama, who has murdered lots of people in the Middle East using flying robots, who bailed out corporations, who promised us the most ethical administration ever, and then signed ethics waivers for some of the people he appointed to positions. Or you could vote for Newt Gingrich. I mean, look, I don't want to do election coverage right now because that's another thing. But Newt Gingrich, really? Newt Gingrich is... I thought, not only did I think Whitney Houston was dead already, I thought Newt Gingrich was dead. I mean, Newt Gingrich is still alive. At this particular moment... Oh, I did not mention that it's still February the 16th, 2012. In the wake of Whitney Houston's death. Oh, my God. I mean, I seriously, when I saw Newt Gingrich on TV, I'm like, he's still alive. And Mitt Romney, I mean, these are yeah, let's vote for somebody more mainstream, like Mitt Romney. Have you seen the video of where Mitt Romney is, Romney, whatever the fuck his name is, I don't care, where the person in the wheelchair who wants to be able to smoke medical marijuana because he has cancer comes up and he's asking Mitt something like, you know, why won't you let me have medical marijuana, blah, blah. And Mitt is just like, this is not what he says. I'm paraphrasing his attitude. Mitt is like, just get the fuck away from me, dude. And just like totally blows this guy off. And he just says something like, no, I don't think you should be allowed to smoke marijuana. And I mean, there you are. For those of you who are statist, that's it. Here's this person who's sick, he's in a wheelchair, he has cancer, and as a fucking statist, your goddamn concern in life is that this person doesn't fucking smoke a plant, that this person doesn't take some flowers. For those of you who are stupid, you don't smoke the leaves of marijuana plants, you smoke the fucking flowers. I know this because I have a friend who has a PhD in botany. Okay, you statists are so fucked up and so full of hate and so obsessed with controlling other people's lives that your big concern is that some sick person who has cancer and is in a wheelchair doesn't smoke some fucking flowers and inhale the smoke into his lungs. I mean, that's what you're obsessed about. That's what's important to you. And that's the cocksucker that a lot of you, that cocksucker could be our next president. I don't think he will. I think Obama's going to win again. Like I said, this is not election coverage. I'm not going into that. But the point is, yeah, let's vote for somebody more mainstream. Ron Paul is like all politicians in the sense that he's a scumbag because he's a politician. Anybody who wants to be part of the state mechanism is somebody that I don't trust. If I had to vote for somebody for president out of the current contenders, and in the previous episode of Stating the Obvious where we started this, I explained why allowing stupid evil people to vote for other stupid evil people to be the government and tell stupid evil people what's right and what's wrong and what's good or bad doesn't exactly work, or at least I tried to. I know those of you who are statists still don't get that. But I mean, vote for somebody more mainstream. Vote for somebody more statist. Vote for somebody who's in favor of continuing to kill people in the drug war. Vote for somebody who's in favor of continuing to kill people in the Middle East in order to make sure that the oil keeps pumping. So, cumping. That's a combination of cumming and humping. That's the kind of sex I have, cumping. Ask your girlfriend, she'll tell you I cumped the fuck out of that bitch last night. What? I started thinking about your girlfriend. I got all distracted. I really like her ass. It's like a baby's bottom. Anyway. Oh, great. I said baby's bottom. Now I'm a child pornographer. All right. Randy, what the fuck was I talking about? Ron Paul, yes. Statist will say, vote for somebody more mainstream. Yeah, because Ron Paul doesn't want, at least Ron Paul says, he doesn't want to keep killing people. I can't vouch for what's actually in Ron Paul's brain.
You need to force people to contribute to the greater good.
Ah, yes. We have to, statists believe this one. We have to force people to contribute to the greater good. Because if you don't force people to contribute to the greater good, everybody's so selfish. Everybody's so selfish they'd never do anything for anybody else. But of course, these selfish people that would never do anything for anybody else elect the state. They elect the politicians who make up the state. And those politicians who are elected to make up the state by the selfish people are other selfish people. And yet somehow or another the state is this magical entity that takes these selfish people and turns them into unselfish people, because we can force people to not be selfish. And without the state to force people to do things for the common good, nobody would ever do anything for the common good. I mean, think about it. So you're walking down the street and you see somebody and they're walking down the street and suddenly they trip and they fall down and they land on their face and blood's coming out their nose. Without the state to force you to go over there and help that person, you'd never do it. Or let's say you live in a place where a hurricane comes through And so there's devastation and destruction. Without the state, because we saw what a great job FEMA did, the state, without the state to force people to go and help the people who were hit by that hurricane, nobody would do that. Nobody's going to help another person. Nobody's going to do anything for the common good. Not without the state to force them to do it. Why? Because you're all just so selfish. But somehow or another, the state magically creates this environment where you care about other people because it forces you. The state forces you to pay taxes, and the state takes those taxes and uses those taxes to do wonderful things that you would never do. Somehow or another, somebody does those wonderful things. But you would never do those things without the state forcing you to do it. And because you, as a statist, would never do anything to help another person without the state forcing you, you assume everybody else is as selfish and as hateful as you are.
Well, I went to public school and I turned out fine.
Ah, yes, public school. I talked about public school in the first one already. Yes, without the state, there would be no schools. Without the state, nobody would want to educate their children. Without the state, nobody would be capable of finding a building and holding classes in it and teaching children. No, of course not. Without the state, there'd be no education whatsoever. Nobody would know anything if it wasn't for the state providing education. Parents would not actually pay money to somebody else to teach their children skills, or God forbid, parents wouldn't actually teach their own children. I mean, that would never happen. Which is funny because my mother taught me how to read before I ever went to school. But, apparently in the world of you statists, things like that can't happen without the state. I have news for you. Without the state controlling controlling the education system, kids would probably be a lot smarter. And second of all, and this is the part you really don't like, is that people would have freedom. And as a statist, you hate freedom. For those of you who are opposed to the state because you are religious, without the state controlling education, you could teach your children that God created the earth in 6 days. And for those of you who are opposed to religion, you could teach your children that people were created, or not created, people evolved. I almost said people evolved. There's a new word, evolved. That people evolved from lower animals. By the way, people did not evolve from apes, just in case you're still confused about that one. All right, so the point is, without the state controlling the education system, you as a parent would have the freedom to teach your children what you want them to believe, what you believe is in their best interest, and what you believe is right. And of course, again, as a statist, you don't want that. You're opposed to that because not that you wouldn't want to teach your children whatever bullshit you believe, but you don't want other people teaching their children the bullshit they believe.
Individualism is just another word for selfishness. You're selfish.
Yes, I am selfish because I know what's better for me. I know what I want, I know what I need, I know what's right, and I know what's wrong, and I know what's good, and I know what's bad, better than the state does. Total number of people I have killed in my life, 0. Total number of people killed by the state, by the government of the United States of America. Let's see, how many black people have I enslaved? 0. How many black people have been enslaved under the rules and the regulations of the state? How many Japanese people have I put into concentration camps? How many Japanese people did FDR and the statist government of the United States put into concentration camps? How many cities have I dropped nuclear bombs on? How many cities has the state dropped nuclear bombs on? How many people have I killed or imprisoned for smoking marijuana? How many people has the government, the state, killed or imprisoned for smoking marijuana? Yes, I am a selfish bastard motherfucker.
I'd like to see you go for a week without using roads. How would you even get groceries?
Roads! What about the roads? All right, well, and again, the roads, I'm saving the roads. Originally, I was saving the end of the previous episode for the end of well, anyway, I thought this was all going to be in one episode. Boy, was I stupid. The roads are coming. I'm going to deal with the fucking roads. I am so fucking sick of you goddamn filthy statists and the roads.
I like the government. They give me a check every week. They also give me a check every time I spread my seed. Tell me what ain't right about that.
Okay, the government does give you a check every time you spread your seed. The state, again, remember, we live in a democracy. That means that the statists get power in the statist system by getting elected by the stupid, evil people that you think everybody else is and that you as a statist actually are. Essentially, in our country, what the statists are doing, the statists in the government is doing, is running a breeding program. The liberal side, the left-wing side, is breeding people who are on welfare. That's why the more welfare babies you have, the more welfare checks you get, because the liberals are breeding people who are on welfare in order to get those people to vote for them so that they can compose the state. The conservative Republican side is breeding people via religion. Go forth and multiply, make lots of babies. The purpose of a woman is to make babies, and if you're not making babies, then you're failing to fulfill your duty as God has ordained for you. So the Republican Conservative Christian Coalition is breeding people via religion so that those people can be more numerous than the people who are being bred on welfare and get the Republicans in power. So the idea that giving people money, which has been stolen from other people in the form of taxes, in order to entice them to breed so that they can vote for more statism. I mean, fuck, if I have to explain to you what's wrong with that, you're a fucking statist. I mean, you're paying people to breed so that they'll vote for more statism, so that you can use statism to pay them to breed so they can vote for more statism.
If you legalize drugs, then society will fall into chaos.
Chaos. Total fucking chaos. Right. If we legalize drugs, all of which used to be illegal. One of my favorite moments in college was when a teacher said in front of the class, quote, "Drugs have always been illegal," unquote. And I thought, wow, you mean like millions of years ago when dinosaurs roamed the earth, drugs were illegal. Like when the earth was still semi-solid, it was like this molten ball coalescing and forming in an orbit around the sun. Drugs were illegal. So right before the big, well, depending on what your cosmology theory is, so let's say that right after the Big Bang happened and time actually began, drugs were illegal. Or if you're a creationist, so God's like hanging out and God says, I'm going to do some shit. Let there be light. And so there was light and drugs were illegal. Drugs have always been illegal, really? And if we legalize drugs, society is going to collapse. This is another state. If we let homosexuals get married, society is going to collapse. If we legalize drugs, society is going to collapse. If we allow smoking if we don't have public education, society is going to collapse. Drugs in the past have all been legal, and society was not collapsing at any fucking point. If we legalize drugs, there will be some people who make bad choices and do drugs and do too many drugs, and they may possibly die. But society is not going to collapse. Society has withstood things, okay? Japan got fucking nuked and got their asses kicked in a war. They survived. People and societies can survive things like legalizing drugs. Not everybody, if we legalize drugs, is going to run out, buy marijuana, take 2 puffs of it, and instantly turn into a heroin addict the way the state would like you to think they will.
airplanes would like fall out of the sky because there'd be no FAA to make sure they're all safe.
Okay, I did the airplanes in the previous episode. If you did not listen to the previous episode, go back and listen to it. But I already said, okay, this is the statist idea, right? If the FFA doesn't make sure the airplanes are safe, then the people who do the airplane maintenance, who are members of unions, will not maintain the airplanes properly, and they will allow the airplanes to fall from the sky and kill people because the union members who maintain the airplanes don't care about other humans. They're so selfish. Here's the other thing. So, and again, this is, first of all, God, fuck, you people are so stupid. Remember, without the state, there are no corporations. So, if there's a company, a corporation, and it's an airline corporation, and its airplanes are flying, I can't talk, and the airplanes are falling out of the sky because of poor maintenance. Right now, the way it is, they can get away with this because the people who run the corporation, the people who run the airlines, from the CEO all the way down to the actual mechanic, can hide. They can hide behind the corporation, and they can hide behind the union, and they can avoid any responsibility for their actions. They can completely avoid being responsible for not doing maintenance on the aircraft. Furthermore, if their company starts to go under, the federal government, the state, will bail them out with taxpayer funds so they don't go out of business. In libertarian paradise, quote unquote, where there is no state to regulate this stuff, where there are no corporations created by the state, if you own an airplane company and your airplanes fall out of the sky because of a lack of maintenance, you, the CEO, you, the mechanic, will be held personally responsible for this. And at this point, I can't go into judicial systems. I don't have time. But maybe you're saying, well, but how is the judicial system going to work without the state? There's plenty of answers to that. First of all, the judicial system could still be conducted through the state. But second of all, we already have judicial systems that aren't done through the state. They're called arbitrators. All right, so your airplanes are falling out of the sky. Without the state to protect you from being held responsible for the airplane falling out of the sky, you are going to be held responsible. Second of all, without the state to bail you out when you fail, if your airplanes, if we have Alice Airlines over here and Alice's airplanes start falling out of the sky, people are going to stop buying tickets. And then Alice's Airlines is going to go out of business, and Bob's Airlines, because Bob has his mechanics actually work on the airplanes, Bob will sell more tickets, he'll be able to hire more mechanics, buy newer airplanes, and his shit will fly better. And that's how fucking capitalism, that's how real capitalism, we don't have capitalism in the United States, we have corporatism. That's how real capitalism would work. Okay, we don't need the FFA to keep airplanes flying. We need freedom. We need freedom of people who are wronged by the airlines to hold the airlines accountable, and we need the freedom of the airlines that don't provide the services people need and don't take people's safety seriously to go out of business. That's the libertarian paradise solution to this. The idea that the FFA is somehow or another magically going to keep airplanes flying is pathetic.
War is good because it makes boys into men. Without war, they're just a bunch of pussies.
Ah, yes, war is good. Because without war, boy, yeah, we'd just be a bunch of pussies. We gotta have war. We gotta kill them people in other countries, by God. For those of you who are statist and think that we need to be killing people in foreign countries, I'm so at a loss for this. Okay, here we go. It's not going to work. What if the Chinese army showed up on American soil and started shooting people and started trying to overthrow our government? How would you feel about that? How would you like that? As a statist, as a libertarian, as anybody. How would you like that? And then we go to these countries and we do this to them. And you're okay with this. Why? Because it's making boys into men. This is a serious fucking argument that you statists have, and I think it probably is. We need war, because without war, our boys wouldn't turn into men and they'd be a bunch of pussies. I mean, if a statist ever actually said that to me, I don't know that I could take that seriously enough to even formulate an intelligent response. I just kick him in the nuts and ask him how he fucking pussy feels now.
If the roads weren't publicly owned, you'd never even be able to leave your house. There'd be...
The roads! Alright. The roads are coming. It's going to be at the end.
Armageddon. There'd be a total societal collapse, followed by riots, and then we'd all end up living in caves again.
Exactly.
The internet is overrated.
Right. If the roads weren't public, society would collapse.
Ain't nothing true on there, at least that's what I heard. There'd be anarchy. So you actually think that people should be allowed to make enough money to fly around in private jets while people in Africa are starving?
Oh, you mean like the Kennedys' private jets? You mean like Whitney Houston's private jet? Whitney Houston on the right? You mean like Air Force One, Obama's private jet? I mean, yeah, I think that if people make enough money providing things for other people that people willingly pay for, yes, they should be able to fly around in a private jet while people are starving in Africa. First of all, if we're going to stop spending money as long as people are starving in Africa, then, I mean, how does that help starving people in Africa? Second of all, by flying around in a private jet, somebody has to fly the jet, somebody has to fuel the jet, somebody has to build an airport for the jet, and the state can do all that. Somebody has to clean the jet, somebody has to build the jet, somebody has to maintain the jet. Of course, without the FFA to tell the person how to maintain the jet, the person's not going to maintain the jet, and the jet's going to fall out of the sky, and we're all going to die, and there's going to be anarchy and chaos. Yes, I think people should be allowed to spend their money the way they choose to spend their money. And yes, some people have more money than other people. Bill Gates has more money than I do. That's because Bill Gates has done things that people value more than they value the things that I've done. All I've done is talk about freedom and try to convince people to stop being slaves. Bill Gates, on the other hand, gave us Windows, a crappy operating system that crashes on a regular basis, and it has allowed teenage boys all over the United States to access internet porn. That's why he has billions of dollars. Because he's done things that people want.
Dude, you're disgusting.
I am.
Well, I wouldn't have a job if it weren't for the government protecting my union.
Right, is that the same union that's going to allow airplanes to fall out of the sky by not doing maintenance? Is that the same union the state bailed out when it bailed out the automobile corporations?
I'm a good worker because I got seniority. So you think somebody in a car accident who goes to a hospital should get turned away because they couldn't afford care? You can't...
Okay, yes, health care. Oh yes, if the state didn't provide health care, where would it come from? All right, first of all, if the state wasn't involved in health care, you might be able to buy health insurance in a state other than the one you live in, which means you might be able to get cheaper health insurance, you might be able to get better health insurance. Competition has a way of doing that. If it wasn't for the state, you probably wouldn't get your health insurance through the place where you work. Your health insurance wouldn't be tied to your employer, and when you lose your job or quit your job or take another job, your health insurance wouldn't get completely hosed over. If it wasn't for the state and the regulations and the bullshit, hospitals probably wouldn't be as expensive because they wouldn't have to spend as much time dealing with paperwork and bullshit. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, but the hospitals would turn people away. Really? Again, the hospital. It's like the state. It's like the corporation. It's something that doesn't actually exist. Somebody would come into the emergency room and they would be bleeding. Their arm would be broken, whatever. And somebody would actually say to them, oh, sorry, we're not going to take care of you here. In a libertarian world where people have freedom, that would probably not happen. Because first of all, if they did this, the word of this would get out. And because in a libertarian world, other people would be free to have hospitals, and people would be free to make a choice about what hospital they go to. It might not be dictated to them by their insurance. A hospital that turned people away would probably suffer repercussions. People would probably have better insurance. People would have more money because they wouldn't be paying all of these taxes. Hospital costs would be lower. There's a whole slew of things. You could also have like what do you call those things? Randy, those like box hospital thingies. Like the urgent care things. There would probably be more of those. I mean, yes, there are some medical conditions where you need a real actual hospital and doctors and nurses and everything that has to offer. There are other things where not necessarily so. There would be different levels of medical care available under different conditions, and all of this would happen at a lower cost because without regulations that the larger hospitals use to prevent anybody from competing with them, there would be different types of medical care available in different, essentially, sizes. You would have the big mega hospital that has all the expensive gear, and you would have smaller hospitals and clinics and offices and places that could provide things that don't require I was about to say CGIs, because yeah, we're in a movie or something. MRIs and all these other things. Furthermore, as a statist, your premise that hospitals are going to turn sick people away it goes back to what I said has to be your basic philosophy in life as a statist. That other people are stupid and evil. That these people are going to turn away the sick because they're so evil that all they care about is money. And there won't be any charity organizations because people are so evil. All they care about is money. Nobody will set up hospitals for people that don't have a lot of money. Nobody would help fund those things. Nobody would contribute to charities. Your assumption as a statist is that none of these things would happen without the state making them happen. And it's because you believe everybody else is evil and selfish. And I understand why you believe this. It's because you are evil and selfish. We, as human beings, naturally extend our motives to other people. So for example, you see other people doing things and you think that person must be this way because that's the way I would be, or this person must think this thought because that's what I would think. We take our own prejudices, we take our own beliefs, we take our own worldviews, and we put these on other people. This is why it's hard to understand. It's hard for me to understand how you statists can be so fucked up. Because my worldview is that even though there are some stupid, evil people out there, most people are competent enough to make their own damn decisions. And so for a long time, I sort of assumed everybody else thought the same way I did, that everybody else believed that. It was only after a lot of work and a lot of thinking and a lot of talking to statists that I realized that no, you people as statists are not capable of making your own decisions. You're not capable of knowing right from wrong and good from bad, and you need to be told these things by the state. And so you assume that everybody else also needs to be told these things, and that's why you assume that because you would refuse medical assistance to an injured person, you assume that everybody else would do the same thing. And I think this is just perfectly natural human thinking. Unfortunately, as a statist, you're not really what I would consider to be human.
Cut funding to cancer research? You want people to get cancer?
No, I don't. I just don't want the state to fund cancer research. Again, there's shit tons. Have you, all the time, the what do you call it? The pink thing that raises money to find cures for breast cancer. There's all kinds of organizations that run shit tons of money. There's all kinds of organizations that raise shit tons of money for medical research. And unlike many of you out there, I worked in the biomedical research field for 8 years of my life, and I know how much of biomedical research is bullshit. It's scientists doing bullshit research in order to continue getting funding. I mean, in 8 years, we spent crap tons of money researching tuberculosis. They actually did learn some shit. They spent shit tons of money researching HIV. In 8 years, learned nothing. But it did, pay for the researchers' automobile payments. It put the researchers' kids through college. It's not about doing the research. It's about getting the money. I know way, way too much about biomedical research, okay? So the idea that without the state, killing people for smoking marijuana and making war in Afghanistan, and without the state telling us what is marriage and what isn't marriage, and without the state telling us what's right and wrong, and that somehow or another cancer will never be cured. And pharmaceutical corporations. Good one. Thank you, Randy. The pharmaceutical corporations who are protected by the state, who are protected by the regulations, who are corporations because of the state. These corporations have no incentive to see cancer cured. Think about this. So you have a person who has cancer. If you give them a drug, let's say you have to give them this drug for 6 months, and now they don't have cancer anymore. You've only sold them 6 months worth of medication. But if you get somebody on cancer, and this is why the corporations and the state are against medical marijuana, because if you get somebody who has cancer and you can't cure them, but they don't die and they're in pain and they live that way for 10 more years, you can sell them 10 years worth of drugs. 10 fucking years of medication sold to these people. And the fact that they're suffering and they're in pain, who gives a fuck? Your corporation is making money, and that corporation is paying part of that money to the state in the form of taxes, and the state is using that money to kill people in foreign countries and to kill people for smoking marijuana, because God forbid you smoke some marijuana, which you could grow in your fucking backyard and not feel any pain, because that's not going to be to the benefit of the corporation, and that's not going to be to the benefit of the state.
Why don't you fight another civil war then, Sonny?
Why don't you fight another civil war? I'm trying to think in what context a statist would say this to a libertarian. I suppose in the context of the libertarian saying that we need more freedom, and the statist saying, well, if you want more freedom, why don't you fight another civil war? Well, the reason I don't fight another civil war is because I don't have an army.
We need the FDA to make sure our peanut butter is safe.
Ah, yes, the FDA to tell us what to eat and what not to eat. Because people aren't smart enough to figure this. I saw an article somewhere recently, I think it was in the Collegian, the local college newspaper, where it's talking about the FDA needs to revamp regulations because the labels on food are too difficult for people to understand. I'm not making this up, and in fact, it's in the pile somewhere. I'm going to talk about this in an upcoming episode, stating the obvious. Because what they do is, so like you've got a can of tuna, and it will say 100 calories per serving, and then it will say there are 2 servings in this can. So the can really has 200 calories in it. And the gist of this article was that that method of labeling is too complicated for people to understand. I went to my pantry. Pantry is a fancy word for where they keep food. And I pulled out a bunch of random boxes and cans and stuff. I don't actually have a lot of that stuff because I don't eat a lot of stuff that comes out of a can or a box, but I have some. I do this thing called cooking. And I looked at these things and none of them were even slightly confusing to me. But then I remembered I'm not a statist. I'm not stupid and evil. I'm smart enough to read the fucking label on a can of soup. Okay? The idea that if the FDA didn't make sure our peanut butter was safe, that peanut butter would be poisonous. Again, this goes back to the same thing I said about the airplane company. Okay, if you're selling peanut butter and people are dying from eating your peanut butter, first of all, the media is going to let everybody know. Just like if an airplane crashes, the media is going to make sure everybody fucking knows about this, and people are going to stop buying your fucking peanut butter. Your choices are going to be either make peanut butter that's safe to eat or go out of business, because the government won't be there to bail you out. And because the government hasn't created corporations, you won't be able to hide behind a fictitious corporate entity. You personally will be responsible for anyone who has died from eating your toxic peanut butter. Yet again, the state is not protecting anybody other than the corporations. The state is only protecting themselves and the corporations. The state is not magically protecting consumers from poisonous food, because your assumption here is that, again, if there's no state, if there's no regulation, that people who manufacture food are either so stupid or so evil that they're going to create food that's poisonous, and they're going to distribute this.
You don't think we should fund FEMA? You
No.
know, I hope there's a disaster in your neighborhood. Nobody helps you. Roads!
Roads! FEMA. Yes. Is this the same FEMA that totally kicked ass after Hurricane Katrina? No, I don't think the fucking state is capable of responding to disasters any better than people who live in the local area, people who live nearby, and people who are perfectly willing to get off their asses and go out and help other people because they believe it's the right thing to do. And they're willing to do it for free. The idea that we should have an overpaid, overstaffed, fucked up agency like FEMA, which eats money and does nothing, as opposed to allowing people who are willing to help other humans. And again, as a statist, I understand why you don't see why this would work, because you as a statist would never get off your ass and go help another human being in a disaster area, because you're a selfish, hateful piece of shit. And that's why you think that this must be done by the state. But not everybody is like you. Not everybody is a hate-filled gas bag fuckwad. Roads!
Roads. Roads, man. Roads.
Roads. Roads, man. Roads. Alright, it's time for the roads. Let me catch my breath, because I'm going to need it. The roads. Right up there with what about the children? The roads. It's 8 o'clock. The roads. You statists, you have this weird obsession with roads. The roads. If the state doesn't build the roads, who's gonna build the roads? Okay, let me get this out of the way, because this one's quick and easy. If the state's so fucking great at building the roads, how come road construction never ends? Do you realize that there are bridges in the world that are hundreds, maybe even thousands of years old that still work? But here in the United States, we have to rebuild our bridges like every 20 fucking years. So if the state is doing such a fantastic job of building roads, why can't they build roads that don't fall apart? But that's a cheap shot. If the state doesn't build the roads, who's going to build the roads? I'm trying to decide where I want to go with this first. Okay, who is going to build the roads? Well, let's see. Let's say that tomorrow the state said we're not building or maintaining any more roads. So if the state stops building the roads, who's going to take over building the roads? Ask yourself this. Who profits from the roads? Well, now remember, the state is, and nothing happens in a vacuum. So the state is mostly going away. Okay, who profits from the roads? The automobile corporations. Without the state to bail out the automobile corporations, they're going to need to actually make a profit. So to sell automobiles, what do you need to have for most automobiles? You need to have roads. Who else benefits from roads? United Auto Workers. Who else benefits from roads? The multi-billion-dollar international oil corporations. Without roads, nobody's driving cars. If nobody's driving cars, who's buying gasoline? Who's buying diesel for semi-trucks? Semi-trucks. Let's talk about semi-trucks for a minute. Who benefits from roads? Who makes money from roads? Apple computers benefits from roads. I like using Apple for these examples because most of you, I shouldn't say most, a lot of you who are statists, especially the left-wing statists, are also members of the cult of Apple. You have an iPhone and an iPad and an iPod and an iComputer, and you don't recognize that much of the rare minerals in these devices is mined in Africa by slave labor. Or if you do realize it, you don't allow that to bother you because you're a selfish cocksucking motherfucker and other people's misery doesn't mean anything to you as long as you have a fucking iPhone. And you buy every new iDevice that comes out without any thought of how much material was wasted and used to make your iPhone 2 because you needed an iPhone 3 and then you need an iPhone 4. And, you know, so fuck it. We can just keep buying shit because it's perfectly okay. But Apple computer, you statist motherfuckers can't get your iPhone from Apple if there's not a road for the truck carrying those iPhones to drive on. The grocery stores. This may be a news flash for those of you who are statist. Food doesn't magically appear in the grocery store because the state paid somebody to make the corn grow, and then the state magically teleported the corn from the farm to the grocery store. Okay, the food gets to the grocery store on trucks. Who benefits from roads? Pretty much fucking everybody. Without roads, it is true, much of the economy might just shut down. However, without the government taxing people to pay for the roads, and with the fate of the roads in the public hands, I guarantee you somebody, somewhere, is going to cough up some fucking money to pay for the roads. Now you say, but who's going to build the roads? So that's who's going to finance it. Who's going to build the roads? Well, people who own asphalting equipment. I mean, who makes money off of roads? People who build roads. You think the people that build the roads are just going to be like, oh, the state doesn't finance building roads anymore. We're all just going to go on unemployment. Oh, wait, there's no more unemployment because the state went away. We're all going to turn into rapists and murderers because we're all stupid and evil like statists are. No. Just like Apple makes computer devices, it finds a way to sell those devices to people. People who build roads, people who have the equipment and the knowledge and the skill to build roads will find ways to get people to finance the building of roads so that they can stay in business building roads. Okay? So who's going to build the roads? Who's going to pay? The same people that build the roads now. The people that own fucking road building equipment and road building companies. And the people who know how to operate the equipment. The people who know how to build roads. Who's going to finance the roads? The same fucking people who finance it now. The only difference is right now, the state takes our money by force. The state spends part of the money killing people. And then a little bit of that money goes back to building the roads. Instead, as much money as people give to the company who builds the roads, the company can use all of that money to building roads. Because road building companies, at least for the most part, to the extent of my knowledge, don't go around killing people. One of the first roads in the United States. Hold on. No. Randy, have you got that up on the... Nope. Go back. Thank you. That one. Yeah, right there. I want to make sure I get this right. The Lincoln Highway, one of the first roads in the United States, went from almost, I don't want to say from the East Coast to the West Coast, but from very much East Coast to very much West Coast. I know that's very technical and descriptive. What's the guy's name? Carl G. Fisher. He manufactured headlights used on cars. This guy built the Lincoln Highway. Not him personally with a shovel. He financed it. He got other rich people together and they financed building the Lincoln Highway. Fucking Google it. Carl Fisher, Lincoln Highway. I don't have time to give you a history lesson. One of the first roads in the United States, a huge, long motherfucking road built primarily all at the whim of one private citizen. But oh, who's gonna build the roads? Finally, every time you ask the question, who's gonna build the roads? Here's what you're saying. I say to you, Libertarian Paradise, what the fuck ever, you say, who's going to build the roads? What you're saying is, I, a statist, don't know who's going to build the roads if the state doesn't do it. What you're saying is, I, a statist, do not have the intelligence or the imagination to figure out who's going to build the roads. What you're saying is that I, as a statist, because my intelligence and my imagination has a certain limitation, figuring out who's going to build roads is beyond the limits of my mental capacities. Therefore, this is beyond the limits of the mental capacities of everybody. Because if I can't figure it out, it can't be done. This is the fucking ultimate in arrogance, ignorance, stupidity, and just generally pissing me the fuck off. Especially for those of you in the medicated generation, those of you who are under 30, who think you're the smartest generation ever. You have Google and you have an iPhone and you think you're so fucking intelligent. Yet, when I talk about LibPair, you go, well, who's gonna build the roads? Well, wait a minute, dumb fuck. You're the most brilliant generation ever. You're so goddamn intelligent. Why can't you figure out who's going to build the roads if you're so fucking smart? Okay? The limitations of your intelligence do not constitute a limitation on the intelligence of every other person on the planet. Okay, if the state shuts down tomorrow, somebody out there is going to figure out how to build a fucking road. Because it's not that goddamn complicated. It's only complicated to you because you're a goddamn motherfucking dumb fuck cocksucking statist motherfucking piece of shit. I don't bother with the other side. Actually, I just devoted two entire fucking podcast to refuting the other side. I'd love any cocksucking statist out there to fucking refute anything I've said. I spend my entire fucking life dealing with the other side. I get up every day and live in your goddamn statist society with your fucking regulations and your rules and your bullshit where your fucking state kills people. Randy, it's dinner time. Let's get the fuck out, man. I am starving.